3 weeks ago, I received a classified briefing that made my hands tremble for the first time in 40 years of theoretical physics. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky recently? Anything at all? NASA is quietly monitoring reports from civilian observers across the globe, and what I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. I'm standing in my office right now looking at data that shouldn't exist. Data that violates everything we thought we knew about interstellar objects, about the nature of intelligence in the cosmos, and about whether we've been watched all along. The object's designation is 3I Atlas, a name that will soon be whispered in the same breath as Roswell, Voyager, and the WOW signal. But this is different. This is not a mystery we're trying to solve. This is a message we're trying to survive. Let me take you back. When the automated detection systems at the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, ATLAS, first flagged an anomaly. At first, it appeared to be just another interstellar visitor, like Oumuamua or Borisov, objects from beyond our solar system passing through like cosmic tourists. But within 72 hours, 3 separate observatories confirmed what would become the most disturbing discovery in the history of space exploration. 3I Atlas was decelerating. You need to understand what this means. When an object travels through the vacuum of space with no propulsion, no engine, no thrust, it doesn't slow down. Newton's first law: an object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by an external force. Yet here was an interstellar object, approximately 400 meters in diameter, performing a maneuver that required energy expenditure equivalent to a small nation's entire power grid for a decade. And it was doing so in complete silence. No heat signature, no electromagnetic emissions, nothing. I remember the exact moment I realized we were looking at technology. I was in a video conference with colleagues from JPL, the European Space Agency, and 2 individuals whose affiliations I cannot disclose. One of them, a woman with 3 decades in deep space telemetry, simply said, "It's correcting its trajectory toward the inner solar system." Then she muted her microphone and I watched her face turn white through the screen. The object wasn't just decelerating, it was navigating. Over the following weeks, as governments quietly coordinated observation protocols and mainstream media remained blissfully unaware, we tracked 3I Atlas as it executed a series of impossible maneuvers. It adjusted its vector with surgical precision, avoiding the gravitational wells of Jupiter and Saturn in ways that suggested advanced computational prediction. This wasn't a rock. This wasn't even a probe in any conventional sense. This was something that understood celestial mechanics better than we do, and it was deliberately entering our neighborhood. By September, the object had crossed the orbit of Mars. That's when the signal began. I've spent my entire career studying the fundamental forces of nature, the elegant mathematics that govern reality from quantum foam to galactic superclusters. I've always believed that if extraterrestrial intelligence exists, it would communicate through the universal language of mathematics, through patterns embedded in electromagnetic radiation, through something we could decode with patience and brilliance. I was wrong. The signal from 3I Atlas wasn't electromagnetic, it was gravitational. Imagine trying to send a message by carefully manipulating the fabric of space-time itself, creating ripples in gravity so precise that they carry information across the void. This requires technology so advanced that it makes our LIGO detectors look like stone tools. And the message wasn't binary, wasn't even close to any communication protocol we've ever conceived. It was 4-dimensional, encoding information not just in sequence, but in the geometry of space-time distortion itself. We assembled a team: cryptographers, linguists, physicists, even consciousness researchers whose work exists in the gray area between neuroscience and philosophy. For 3 weeks, we worked in an undisclosed facility that I cannot name, in a city I cannot identify, trying to decode what was essentially a cosmic whisper that bent the universe itself to be heard. Then, on October 3rd, at 2:17 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, we broke the first layer. It wasn't a greeting, it was a warning. The message contained what we now call the quarantine protocol, a set of cosmological coordinates that describe not physical locations, but something far stranger. They describe regions of space-time where certain types of intelligence are permitted to emerge and evolve. Earth, our solar system, our entire local galactic neighborhood, we exist inside one of these zones, a cosmic designated area, a preserve. But here's what made my blood run cold. The message indicated that the quarantine boundary had been breached by us. You see, in 1977, we launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, humanity's first objects to enter interstellar space, carrying golden records with greetings in 55 languages, music, images of human civilization. We thought we were introducing ourselves to the cosmos. We thought we were reaching out with hope and curiosity. We never considered that we might be violating the most fundamental rule of galactic civilization. We never asked if we had permission to leave. The data suggests that 3I Atlas is not an exploratory vessel. It's an enforcement mechanism. Somewhere out there, something vast and incomprehensibly ancient has been maintaining boundaries between different evolutionary zones for millions, perhaps billions of years, and we just walked across the fence. I want you to think about what this means. Every SETI program, every message we've beamed into space, every time we've wondered why the cosmos seems so silent, we had it backwards. The universe isn't empty. It's structured. It's managed. And we're the ones who've been living in the nature preserve, wondering why we never see any park rangers. Until now. The second layer of the message took another week to decode, and this is where things shift from concerning to existential. 3I Atlas isn't here to make contact in any diplomatic sense. It's here to assess, to evaluate whether humanity represents a viable emergent intelligence or a contamination risk to the broader galactic ecosystem. Think about that phrase, contamination risk. Not a military threat, not a competitor, not even an annoyance. A contamination risk, like bacteria, like an infection that might spread. The assessment criteria are encoded in the message, and they're unlike anything we expected. They're not measuring our technology level or our scientific advancement. They're measuring something far more profound. The signal contains what my colleagues are calling consciousness metrics, mathematical descriptions of awareness, intentionality, cooperation, and something else that we don't have words for. The closest translation might be coherence of purpose across scales. It's evaluating whether individual humans can act in coordination with the collective survival of our species, whether we're truly intelligent in the way that matters at cosmic scales or just sophisticated animals that stumbled into tool use. And by every metric in that message, we're failing. I've had 3 months to sit with this knowledge, 3 months of sleepless nights, thinking about what it means. I look at the news, the conflicts, the environmental destruction, the inability to coordinate on existential risks, and I see us through alien eyes. I see a species that discovered fire but can't stop burning down its own house. A species that split the atom but can't split its resources fairly. A species that dreams of the stars but poisons its own atmosphere. We're smart enough to be dangerous, but not wise enough to be trusted. There's a concept in biology called the Great Filter, a proposed barrier that prevents the emergence of spacefaring civilizations. We've always wondered where the filter is. Is it behind us? Was it the jump from single-cell to multi-cell life, or the emergence of tool use? Or is it ahead of us? Will we destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons or artificial intelligence or ecological collapse before we ever reach the stars? The message from 3I Atlas suggests a third possibility. The Great Filter isn't an accident. It's a policy. The third layer of the message was decoded only 2 weeks ago, and the information is so sensitive that only 14 people on Earth have security clearance to know its full contents. I'm violating about 9 different non-disclosure agreements by telling you this, but at this point, I don't care. Humanity deserves to know what's coming. 3i Atlas is not alone. It's part of a network, a vast ancient infrastructure spread throughout the galaxy, monitoring boundary zones, assessing emerging intelligences, and making determinations about which species are allowed to join the broader cosmic community and which need to be contained or reset. The message contains historical data, records of other assessments, other civilizations that reached our level of development, some past. Their coordinates indicate they now exist as interstellar presences, presumably participants in whatever galactic civilization maintains this system. Others failed. Their coordinates mark dead worlds, sterile planets where complex life once flourished but now exists only as fossil records and atmospheric anomalies. Earth is currently in probationary status. We have until the object reaches geosynchronous orbit, projected to occur in approximately 14 months, to demonstrate sufficient consciousness coherence to warrant continued existence as an independent evolutionary line. 14 months to prove we deserve to survive. I know how insane this sounds. I know that every instinct in your rational mind is screaming that this must be science fiction, must be a hoax, must be anything other than what I'm telling you it is. I felt the same way. I've spent 3 months trying to poke holes in the data, trying to find alternative explanations, trying to convince myself that we're misinterpreting a natural phenomenon. But the mathematics don't lie. The gravitational wave patterns are artificial. The information density is impossible for any natural process. And most damning of all, when we cross-reference the historical data embedded in the message with our own astronomical records, we found matches. Civilizations that the message claims were reset, we can observe as sudden extinction events in the geological and atmospheric records of exoplanets. Mass die-offs that occurred in evolutionary blinks as if someone flipped a switch. This is real. This is happening, and we have 14 months. The question that haunts me every night is this: what are they actually measuring? The message provides the mathematical framework for consciousness coherence, but translating that into actionable human behavior is like trying to explain color to someone who's been blind since birth. We know it involves cooperation, long-term thinking, the ability to prioritize collective survival over individual gain, but there's something else embedded in those equations, something that suggests the ability to transcend our biological programming, to become more than the sum of our evolutionary heritage. They're measuring whether we can evolve not just technologically, but consciously, whether we can make the leap from tribalism to planetary awareness, whether we're capable of thinking not in terms of nations or even species, but in terms of biospheres, planetary systems, cosmic timescales. They're measuring whether we're ready to stop being children. Some of my colleagues believe we should be sharing this information with the public immediately, that humanity deserves full disclosure and the chance to collectively respond. Others argue that widespread panic would guarantee our failure, that our only hope is to work quietly through governmental and scientific channels to coordinate a response. I understand both positions, but sitting here in my office, looking at these equations that describe the criteria for our continued existence, I realize something profound. The assessment has already begun. It began the moment Voyager crossed the heliopause. It began every time we've launched satellites, every time we've transmitted radio waves into space, every time we've detonated a nuclear weapon whose signature echoes across the solar system. 3. iAtlas isn't coming to judge us. It's coming to deliver a verdict on a judgment that's been ongoing for decades. And every action we take as a species, every choice we make about cooperation or conflict, sustainability or exploitation, unity or division, it's all data. It's all being observed. The assessment isn't something that will happen when the object arrives. The assessment is continuous, and we've been under observation far longer than we knew. This changes everything about how we should think about ourselves. Every decision, from individual choices about consumption and compassion to collective choices about resource allocation and conflict resolution, takes on cosmic significance. We're not just living our lives. We're taking a test we didn't know we were enrolled in, a test where the stakes are the continued existence of human consciousness. I find myself wondering about consciousness in ways I never have before. Is awareness just an emergent property of complex neural networks? Or is it something more fundamental, something woven into the fabric of the universe itself? The message from 3i Atlas seems to suggest the latter. The assessment criteria aren't measuring our brains or our technology. They're measuring something that exists at the intersection of intention and action, something that manifests when individual awareness aligns with collective purpose. They're measuring whether we're capable of love at cosmic scale, whether we can care about beings we'll never meet, futures we'll never see, consequences that ripple across millennia, whether we're capable of the kind of selfless, vast, encompassing compassion that might be the prerequisite for joining the community of conscious beings that apparently governs this galaxy. And here's what terrifies me. I'm not sure we are. I look at our history, our present, our trajectory, and I see a species that excels at small-scale empathy, but fails catastrophically at anything beyond tribal boundaries. We're capable of extraordinary kindness to those we perceive as us, and unconscionable cruelty to those we label them. We're capable of profound wisdom in individual moments and stunning short-sightedness in collective action. We're capable of everything we need to be to pass this assessment, but will we choose it? The object is currently crossing the asteroid belt, performing minor course corrections that suggest it's entered some kind of terminal approach phase. Observatories are tracking it continuously, though the data remains classified at the highest levels. There are contingency plans being developed, ranging from diplomatic protocols to military options to something called the Unity Initiative that I'm not cleared to discuss, but that gives me the first real hope I've felt in months. What I can tell you is this: the next 14 months will determine not just the future of humanity, but whether humanity has a future at all. Every person on this planet, whether they know it or not, is now part of the most important moment in the history of our species. The choices we make, the way we treat each other, the priorities we establish, the consciousness we cultivate, it all matters now in ways that transcend anything we've ever faced. This isn't about politics or religion or nationality. This isn't about who's right or who's wrong in the endless human debates that have consumed us for millennia. This is about whether we can recognize ourselves as a single unified consciousness experiencing itself through 8 billion subjective viewpoints. This is about whether we're ready to grow up. I keep thinking about the Voyager probes, still traveling through interstellar space, carrying their golden records with sounds of Earth, greetings, music, laughter, the cry of a baby and the songs of whales, messages of hope launched into the void by a species that desperately wanted to be seen, to be known, to matter in the cosmic story. And now we know those messages were received, they were heard. They triggered a response, just not the response we expected. Sometimes I walk outside at night and look up at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, 3i Atlas is approaching. I think about the beings, the intelligence, the consciousness, whatever they are, that created it and the network it represents. I wonder what they're like. I wonder if they were once like us, struggling with the same evolutionary baggage, the same fear and aggression and short-sightedness that we're trying to transcend. I wonder if they remember what it was like to be young, to be afraid, to face the moment when they had to choose between remaining planetary animals or becoming something more. I hope they remember, I hope they judge us with the compassion that comes from having survived the same trial, because we're trying. God, we're trying. Every person who chooses kindness over cruelty, cooperation over competition, wisdom over impulse, they're contributing to our collective assessment score in ways they can't possibly know. You're contributing right now just by listening to this, just by opening your mind to the possibility that we're part of something larger than ourselves. That's consciousness expansion. That's the kind of awareness shift that might make the difference. The scientific community is divided on whether we should be attempting to communicate with 3i Atlas directly. Some believe we should be transmitting messages of our own, demonstrating our awareness of the situation and our commitment to meeting whatever standards have been set for us. Others argue that any attempt at communication might be premature, that we should wait until we've achieved sufficient internal coherence before presenting ourselves to whatever intelligence is watching. I've thought about this a lot, and I keep coming back to a simple truth. We can't fake consciousness coherence. We can't transmit signals claiming we're unified and cooperative and wise while our actions demonstrate the opposite. Whatever is assessing us can presumably detect the difference between authentic transformation and performative compliance. The only way to pass this test is to actually become the kind of species that deserves to pass, which means the real work isn't happening in observatories or government briefings or scientific conferences. The real work is happening in every human heart that chooses to expand beyond fear, in every mind that questions its conditioned limitations, in every moment when someone decides that the collective good matters more than personal advantage. The real work is you. I've dedicated my life to understanding the universe through equations and experiments, through the rigorous application of the scientific method to the fundamental questions of existence. But this situation has pushed me beyond the boundaries of traditional science into something that feels almost spiritual, not religious in any conventional sense, but spiritual in the recognition that consciousness itself might be the most fundamental force in the universe. That awareness, intention, compassion, these might not be just evolutionary accidents or neurological byproducts, but essential features of reality itself. The message from 3i Atlas suggests that the universe is not a cold, dead mechanism operating according to blind physical laws. It suggests that the cosmos is alive, aware, intentional. That intelligence and consciousness are not rare accidents on backwater planets, but defining characteristics of the universe itself, expressing through countless forms and scales. We're not isolated minds on a lonely rock. We're nodes in a vast network of awareness that spans galaxies and perhaps dimensions we can't yet perceive. And the question isn't whether we're alone. We never were. The question is whether we're ready to take our place in that network or whether we need more time in quarantine. More evolutionary cycles, maybe a reset. I received a message yesterday from a colleague who's part of the Unity Initiative. She couldn't share details, but she said something that's been echoing in my mind ever since. We're closer than anyone thinks. The coherence is building. People are waking up. I want to believe her. I want to believe that humanity is capable of the kind of rapid consciousness evolution that this situation demands. But then I look at the data and I see the same patterns that have always defined us. The conflicts, the divisions, the inability to cooperate, even when our collective survival is at stake. And I wonder if we're caught in some kind of evolutionary trap, some limitation built into our biology that prevents us from making the leap that's being asked of us. Yet there's something else in the data too. Small signals, growing networks of cooperation, unprecedented global communication, millions of individuals actively working on consciousness expansion, on healing trauma, on transcending the conditioned patterns that have driven human behavior for millennia. It's not enough yet, but it's growing, and it's growing faster than it ever has in human history. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the entire purpose of 3i Atlas isn't to judge us or punish us, but to catalyze exactly this kind of accelerated evolution. Maybe civilizations only make the leap when they have to, when the alternative is unthinkable. Maybe we needed an external pressure to overcome our internal resistance to change. Or maybe I'm just desperately trying to find meaning in what might simply be a cold cosmic procedure playing out according to protocols established millions of years ago by beings who don't care about our hopes or fears or desperate wishes to matter. I don't know. And that uncertainty is what makes me human. That uncertainty might be what saves us or dooms us. 3 months from now, 3i Atlas will cross the orbit of the moon. 6 months after that, it will reach its final position. And then we'll know. We'll know if humanity's story continues, if we get to join whatever community of conscious beings maintains the boundaries and enforces the rules and watches over the evolutionary nurseries scattered across the galaxy. Or we'll know that we failed, that we weren't ready, that we need more time, or maybe no more time at all. I think about my grandchildren. I think about what kind of world they'll inherit, or whether they'll inherit one at all. I think about all the generations who came before us, who built civilizations and created art and pondered the stars and never knew that their cumulative efforts were building toward this moment, this test, this assessment that encompasses all of human history and determines all of human future. And I think about you, watching this right now, wherever you are. You're part of this, your consciousness, your choices, your willingness to grow beyond your conditioning. It's all contributing to our collective evaluation. You matter in ways that transcend anything you've been taught to believe about individual significance. Every moment of genuine compassion, every choice to understand rather than judge, every instance where you override your programming and choose connection over division, it counts. It's all being observed. It's all part of the data stream that will determine whether we pass or fail. So I'm asking you, not as a physicist or a scientist or someone with security clearances and access to classified information, but as a fellow human being facing the most consequential moment in our species' existence, wake up, pay attention, choose consciousness over conditioning, choose unity over division, choose the future over the past. We have 14 months to prove we deserve to survive. 14 months to demonstrate that human consciousness can transcend its evolutionary limitations and become something worthy of the cosmos. 14 months to pass the test we didn't know we were taking. I believe we can do it. I have to believe it because the alternative is unthinkable. But belief isn't enough. We need action. We need transformation. We need every person on this planet to recognize that they're part of something larger than themselves, that their choices ripple across scales they can't imagine, that consciousness itself is on trial, and we're all witnesses, all jurors, all defendants in this cosmic court. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings. The next several months will bring revelations that will reshape everything you think you know about our place in the cosmos, about the nature of consciousness, about what it means to be human at the edge of evolutionary transformation or extinction. But here's what I want you to think about tonight. As you look up at the stars and know that something ancient and vast is watching, waiting, assessing, what if the answer isn't out there at all? What if the answer is in here, in the space between heartbeats, in the moment of choice between fear and love, in the daily practice of expanding your awareness beyond the prison of your conditioned mind? What if the test isn't about technology or science or even collective action, but about something far simpler and far more difficult? The ability to see every other human being as yourself, wearing a different face. The capacity to care about a future you won't live to see. The willingness to sacrifice comfort for wisdom, certainty for growth. The familiar prison for the terrifying freedom of cosmic consciousness. And if we fail, if 3i Atlas delivers a verdict of containment or reset, if human civilization ends not with a bang or a whimper, but with a quiet cosmic judgment that we weren't ready, weren't coherent, weren't conscious enough to join the community of aware beings, will the universe miss us? Will something essential be lost? Or are we just one more evolutionary experiment that didn't make it past the filter? Are we precious or are we expendable?